Now let's talk about your background for a second, because you weren't always in this end of the business. You were a working musician.
I was a drummer for many years. I was a touring drummer. So before I got into, I guess the industry side of it and really getting interested in what other opportunities there are outside of just playing and performing, I was a touring drummer for years. So that's kind of how I cut my teeth.
And what brought you to this end of the business?
I was always interested in doing something on the industry side. And I thought early on that maybe that would be management or working at a record label or maybe something that was a little more, I don't want to say traditional, but maybe a little bit more of a clearer path. I would go on tour and come back and I would work at a screen printing shop. So that was my gig when I was at home. I was, cleaning screens and kind of doing a lot of the grunt work at the screen printing shop. So I always had an interest on the merchandise side of it. And I think that kind of the two concepts of really being interested on the production, the screen printing side, and getting started with that, and the blend of my interest in music and the music industry, merchandise and brand management seemed like a really good fit, and it seemed like kind of an open lane at that time too, where there wasn't that many options.
Did that start with your band first? So was that your first client?
Yeah, easy client to score, right? Yeah, so that was one of the first clients that we had was my band, and I played in a bunch of different acts back then, like some metal bands, some pop bands, like all over the place. So we were doing a lot of the merchandise for the bands that I was playing with at that time.
That's one part of it, though. Breaking out and actually doing it for a living is something completely different. So how did you make that transition?
I got sick of touring. That
Yeah.
was a big aspect of really wanting to commit to the business and really wanting to press forward with it. Was I was just burnt out from being on the road, and I'd done it for so many years and I loved it and I had a ton of fun, especially like early on. I really enjoyed it, but I just got tired of touring, and I really wanted to pursue something on the industry side. So that was really the starting point where I could feel myself kind of being like, maybe the touring and the road isn't for me anymore. But there were a few years where I was kind of juggling both, and that had, its own set of challenges with being on the road and still trying to run a business. And it just kind of came to a point where it was like, well, really need to commit to this as kind of as the future, I feel like.
Yeah, I went through the same thing where I was on the road all the time, and finally it got very old. There was one particular day, I remember one tour that I was doing, and it just hit me one night on stage. It's like, no, I don't think I want to do this anymore.
What was your background?
I was a guitar player at this point. I was the musical director for a famous English guitar player.
Okay.
I won't go any farther than that. Again, it wasn't a great tour. And then it was just like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And, the funny part was, it was one of the best days of my life when I actually determined that, because as a
Liberating.
musician, yeah, as a musician, there's so much of your personality that's incorporated into being a musician. And you feel like you have to justify that. And when that's gone, it's like, oh, I can be
Liberating.
me. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's I feel like a feeling of almost feeling institutionalized to touring too, where if that's the only thing that you've done for years and years, it's that constant feeling of inertia, right? And being
Hmm.
on the road and off the road, coming home for 6 weeks, then going back on tour for 6 weeks. And you get in that cycle, and it's really difficult to take your mind out of it and think about living, any other way that isn't in that sort of pattern. So and especially if you do it for years and years, I mean, I was on the road, which isn't a real long time, but almost 8 years I was going pretty consistently. So you definitely get caught up in that as not just a lifestyle, but kind of a rhythm that you live, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I don't I can't say I miss it, but I'm glad I did it. Let's put it
I
like that.
miss I miss the traveling and the obviously the freedom of being able to see a different city every day. It was obviously the time to do it is when you're young, and I'm glad I spent, early 20s, mid 20s doing it. It was great. So I do look back on it fondly, but the stability now of, being home and consistent job and wife, kids, it's nice.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah.